Hello, my darling, and welcome to today's story time. Today we are doing an hour of power of Dante, where we will read the next 6 cantos to catch us up with the 100 Days of Dante challenge. As a lot of you know, I've been pretty sick and had surgery recently, but we are doing a lot better. And thank you to those of you who've reached out to me. You mean everything to me. And now, on with our story time. Canto 14. Soon as the charity of native land wrought in my bosom, I the scattered leaves collected, and to him restored, who now was hoarse with utterance. To the limit thence we came, which from the third the second round divides, and where the justice is displayed, contrivance horrible, things then first seen clearer to manifest. I tell how next to plan we reached, that from its sterile bed each plant repelled. The mournful woods waves round its garland on all sides, as round the wood spreads the sad boss. There, on the very edge, our steps we stayed. It was an area wide of arid sand, and thick, resembling most the soil that erst by Cato's foot was trod. Vengeance of heaven, oh, how shouldst thou be feared by all who read what here my eyes beheld? Of naked spirits many a flock I saw, all weeping piteously to different laws, subjected. For on the earth some lay supine, some crouching close were seated, others paced incessantly around. The latter tribe more numerous, those fewer who beneath the torment lay, but louder in their grief. Over all the sand fell slowly wafting down dilated flakes of fire, as flakes of snow on alpine summit when the wind is hushed. As in the torrid Indian clime, the son of Ammon saw upon his warrior band descending solid flames that to the ground came down, whence he bethought him with his troop to trample on the soil, for easier thus the vapor was extinguished while alone. So fell the eternal fiery flood, wherewith the marble glowed underneath, as under stove the viands, doubly to augment the pain. Unceasing was the play of wretched hands, now this, now that way glancing, to shake off the heat, still falling fresh. I thus began. Instructor, thou who all things overcomest, except the hardy demons that rushed forth to stop our entrance at the gate, say who is yon huge spirit that, as seems, heeds not the burning, but lies withered in proud scorn, and by the sultry tempest immatured. Straight he himself, who was aware I asked, my guide of him, exclaimed, such as I was when living, dead such now I am. If Jove weary his workman out, from whom in ire he snatched the lightnings, that at my last day transfixed me, if the rest be weary, out at their backs smithy laboring by turns in Mongibillo, while he cries aloud, help, help, good Mulciber, as erst he cried in the Phrygian warfare, and the bolts launch he full aimed at me with all his might. He never should enjoy a sweet revenge. Then thus my guide, in accent higher raised than I before had heard him, Capenius, thou art more punished, in that this thy pride lives yet unquenched. No torrent save thy rage, where to thy fury pain proportioned full. Next, turning round to me with milder lip, he spake. This of the 7 kings was one, who girt the Theban walls with siege, and held, as still he seems to hold, God in disdain, and sets his high omnipotence at naught. But as I told him, his despiteful mood in ornament well suits the breast that wears it. Follow me now, and look thou set not yet thy foot in the hot sand, but to the wood keep ever close. Silently on we passed to where there gushes from the forest's bound a little brook, whose crimsoned wave yet lifts my hair with horror, as the rill that runs from Bullacame to the portioned out among the sinful women. So ran this down through the sand, its bottom and each bank stone-built, in either margin at its side, whereon I straight perceived our passage lay. Of all that I have shown thee, since that gate we entered first, whose threshold is to none denied, naught else so worthy of regard, as is this river, as thine eye discerned, over which the flaming volley all is quenched. So spake my guide, and I him thence besought that, having given me appetite to know the food he too would give, that hunger craved. In the midst of ocean, forthwith he began. A desolate country lies, which Crete is named, under whose monarch in old times the world lived pure and chaste. A mountain rises there, called Ida, joyous once with leaves and streams, deserted now, like a forbidden thing. It was the spot which Rhea, Saturn's spouse, chose for the secret cradle of her son, and better to conceal him, drowned in shouts his infant cries. Within the mount, upright, an ancient form there stands, and huge, that turns his shoulders towards Damiata, and at Rome as in his mirror looks. Of finest gold his head is shaped, pure silver are the breast and arms, thence to the middle is of brass, and downward all beneath well-tempered steel, save the right foot of potter's clay, on which, then on the other more erect, he stands. Each part, except the gold, is rent throughout, and from the fissure tears distill, which joined penetrate to that cave. They in their course thus far precipitated down the rock, form Acheron and Styx and Phlegethon, then by this straitened channel passing hence beneath, even to the lowest depth of all, form there Cocytus, of whose lake thyself shall see it. I here give thee no account. Then I to him, if from our world this sluice be thus derived, wherefore to us but now appears it at this edge? He straight replied, the place, thou know'st, is round, and though great part thou have already passed, still to the left, descending to the nethermost, not yet hast thou the circuit made of the whole orb. Wherefore if aught of new to us appear, it needs not bring up wonder in thy looks. Then again I inquired, where flow the streams of Phlegethon and Leth? For of one thou tellest not, and the other of that shallower thou sayest is formed. He answer thus returned, doubtless thy questions all well pleased I hear, yet the red seething wave might have resolved once thou proposed. Leth thou shalt see, but not within this hollow, in the place whither to lave themselves the spirits go, whose blame hath been by penitence removed. He added, time is now we quit the wood. Look thou my steps pursue, the margins give safe passage, unimpeded by the flames. For over them all vapor is extinct. Canto 15. One of the solid margins bears us now enveloped in the mist, that from the stream arising hovers over, and saves from fire both piers and water. As the Flemings rear their mound twixt Ghent and Bruges to chase back the ocean, fearing his tumultuous tide that drives towards them, or the Padawans theirs among the Brenta to defend their towns and castles, ere the genial warmth be felt on Shiratana's top. Such were the mounds so framed, though not in height or bulk to these made equal by the master, whosoever he was that raised them here. We from the wood were not so far removed that turning round I might not have discerned it, when we met a troop of spirits who came beside the pier. They each one eyed us, as at eventide one eyes another under a new moon, and toward us sharpened their sight as keen as an old tailor at his needle's eye. Thus, narrowly explored by all the tribe, I was agonized of one who by the skirt caught me and cried, "What wonder have we here?" And I, when he to me outstretched his arm, intently fixed my ken on his parched looks, that although smirched with fire, they hindered not what I remembered him, and towards his face my hand inclining answered, "Sir, Brunetto, and art thou here?" He thus to me, "My son, oh let it not displease thee if Brunetto Latini but a little space with thee turn back, and leave his fellows to proceed." I thus to him replied, "Much as I can, I thereto pray thee, and if thou be willing that I here seat me with thee, I consent." His leave, with whom I journey first obtained. "O son," said he, "whoever of this throng one instant stops, lies then 100 years, no fan to ventilate him, when the fire smites sorest. Pass thou, therefore, on. I close will at thy garments walk, and then rejoin my troop, who go mourning their endless doom." I dared not from the path descend to tread on equal ground with him, but held my head bent down, as one who walks in reverent guise. "What chance or destiny," thus he began, "ere the last days conducts thee here below? And who is this that shows to thee the way?" "There up aloft," I answered, "in the life serene, I wandered in a valley lost, before mine age had to its fullness reached. But yestermorn I left it, then once more into that vale returning him I met, and by this path homeward he leads me back." "If thou," he answered, "follow but thy star, thou canst not miss at last a glorious haven, unless in fairer days my judgment erred. And if my fate so early had not chanced, seeing the heavens thus bounteous to thee, I had gladly given thee comfort in thy work. But that ungrateful and malignant race, who in old times came down from Sol, aye, and still smack of their rough mountain flint, will for thy good deeds show thee enmity. Nor wonder, for amongst ill-savored crabs it suits not the sweet fig tree lay her fruit. Old flame reports them in the world for blind, covetous, envious, proud, look to it well. Take heed thou cleanse thee of their ways. For thee thy fortune hath such honor and reserve, that thou by either party shalt be craved with hunger keen, but be the fresh herb far from the goat's tooth. The herd of Faisal may of themselves make litter, not touch the plant, if any such yet spring on their rank bed, in which the holy seed revives, transmitted from those true Romans who still there remained when it was made the nest of so much ill. Were all my wish fulfilled, I straight replied, thou from the confines of man's nature yet hadst not been driven forth. For in my mind I fixed, but now strikes full upon my heart the dear, benign, paternal image, such as thine was, when so lately thou didst teach me the way for man to win eternity. And now I prize the lesson. It behooves that, long as life endures, my tongue should speak. What of my fate thou tell'st, that write I down, and with another text to comment on, for her I keep it, the celestial dame, who will know all if I to her arrive. This only would I have thee clearly note, that so my conscience have no plea against me. Do fortune as she list, I stand prepared, not new or strange, such earnest to mine ear. Speed fortune then her wheel, as likes her best. The clown his mattock, all things have their course. Thereat my sapient guide upon his right turned himself back, then looked at me and spake. He listens to good purpose who takes note. I not the less still on my way proceed, discoursing with Brunetto, and inquire who are most known and chief among his tribe. To know of some as well, thus he replied, but of the rest, silence may best be seen. Time would not serve us for report so long. In brief I tell thee, that all these were clerks, men of great learning and no less renown, by one same sin polluted in the world. With them is Priscian, and Accorso's son, Francesco, herds among that wretched throng. And, if the wish of so impure a blotch possessed thee, him thou also mightst have seen, who by the servant's servant was transferred from Arno's seat to Baciglione, where his ill-strained nerves he left. I more would add, but must from farther speech and onward way alike desist. For yonder I behold a mist new risen on the sandy plain, a company with whom I may not sort approaches. I commend my treasure to thee, wherein I yet survive. My sole request. This said, he turned and seemed as one of those who over Verona's champagne try their speed for the green mantle, and of them he seemed. Not he who loses, but he who gains a prize. Canto, 16. Now came I, where the water's din was heard, as down it fell into the other round, resounding like the hum of swarming bees. When forth together issued from a troop that passed beneath the fierce tormenting storm, 3 spirits running swift. They toward us came, and each one cried aloud, O do thou stay, whom by the fashion of thy garb we deem to be some inmate of our evil land. Ah me, what wounds I marked upon their limbs, recent and old, inflicted by the flames. Even the remembrance of them grieves me yet. Attentive to their cry, my teacher paused and turned me to his visage, and then spake. Wait now. Our courtesy these merit well, and were it not for the nature of the place, whence glide the fiery darts, I should have said that haste had better suited thee than them. They, when we stopped, resumed their ancient wail, and soon as they had reached us, all the three whirled round together in one restless wheel, as naked champions smeared with slippery oil, or wont intent to watch their place of hold and vantage, ere in closer strife they meet. Thus each one, as he wheeled his countenance at me, directed, so that opposite the neck moved ever to the twinkling feet. If misery of this drear wilderness thus one began, added to our sad cheer and destitute, do call forth scorn on us, and our entreaties. Let our great renown incline thee to inform us who thou art, that dost imprint with living feet, unharmed, the soil of hell. He, in whose track thou seest my steps pursuing, naked though he be and reft of all, was of more high estate than thou believest, grandchild of the chaste Guadaldrada. Him they Guido Guerra called, who in this lifetime many a noble act achieved, both by his wisdom and his sword. The other next to me that beats the sand is Aldo Brandi, named deserving well in the upper world of honor, and myself, who in this torment do partake with them, am Rusticucci, whom, past doubt, my wife of savage temper, more than aught beside half to this evil, brought. If from the fire I had been sheltered, down amidst them straight I then had cast me, nor my guide, I deem, would have restrained my going. But that fear of the dire burning vanquished the desire which made me eager of their wished embrace. I then began, not scorn, but grief much more, such as long time alone can cure. Your doom fixed deep within me, soon as this my lord spake words, whose tenor taught me to expect that such a race as ye are was at hand. I am a countryman of yours, who still affectionate hath uttered, and have heard your deeds and names renowned. Leaving the Gaul for the street fruit I go, that a sure guide hath promised to me, but behooves that far as to the center first I downward tend. So may long space thy spirit guide thy limbs, he answered, straight returned, and so thy fame shine bright when thou art gone, as thou shalt tell if courtesy and valor, as they won't, dwell in our city or have vanquished clean. For when amidst us late condemned to moil, Forcier, yonder walking with his peers, grieves us no little by the news he brings. An upstart, multitude, and sudden gains, pride and excess, O Florence, heaven thee engendered, so that now in tears thou mourn'st. Thus cried I with my face upraised, and they, all three, who for an answer took my words, looked at each other, as men look when truth comes to their ear. If thou at other times, they all at once rejoined, so easily satisfied those who question. Happy thou, gifted with words, so apt to speak thy thought. Wherefore if thou escape this darksome clime, returning to behold the radiant stars, when thou with pleasure shalt retrace the past, see that of us thou speak among mankind. This said, they broke the circle and so swift fled that his pinions seemed their nimble feet. Not in so short a time might one have said amen as they had vanished. Straight my guide pursued his track. I followed, and a small space had we passed onward when the water's sound was now so near at hand that we had scarce heard one another's speech for the loud din. Even as the river that holds on its course, unmingled, from the mount of Asulo, on the left side of the Apennine, toward the east, which Aquachetta higher up they call ere it descend into the vale. That Flori by that name no longer known, rebellows over Saint Benedict, rolled on from the Alpine summit down a precipice, where space enough to lodge 1,000 spreads. Thus downward from a craggy steep we found that this dark wave resounded, roaring loud, so that the ear its clamor soon had stunned. I had a cord that braced my girdle round, wherefore I erst had thought fast bound to take the painted leopard. This, when I had all unloosed from me, so my master bade, I gathered up and stretched it forth to him. Then to the right he turned, and from the brink, standing a few paces distant, cast it down into the deep abyss. And somewhat strange, thus to myself I spake, signal so strange betokens, which my guide with earnest eye thus follows. Ah, what caution must men use with those who look not at the deed alone, but spy into the thoughts with subtle skill. Quickly shall come, he said, what I expect. Thine eyes discover quickly that whereof thy thought is dreaming, ever to that truth, which but the semblance of a falsehood wears, a man, if possible, should bar his lip, since, although blameless, he incurs reproach. But silence here were vain, and by these notes which now I sing, reader, I swear to thee, so may they favor find to latest times, that through the gross and murky air I spied a shape come swimming up, that might have quelled the stoutest heart with wonder, in such guise as one returns, who hath been down to loose an anchor, grappled fast against some rock, or to aught else that in the salt wave lies, who upward springing close, trails in his feet. Canto 17. Lo, the fell monster with the deadly sting, who passes mountains, breaks through fenced walls and firm, embattled spears, and with his filth taints all the world. Thus me my guide addressed, and beckoned him, that he should come to shore, near to the stony causeway's utmost edge. Forthwith that image vile of fraud appeared, his head and upper part exposed on land, but laid not on the shore his bestial train, his face the semblance of a just man's war. So kind and gracious was its outward cheer, the rest was serpent, all. 2 shaggy claws reached to the armpits, and the back and breast and either side were painted over with nodes and orbits. Colors variegated more nor Turks nor Tartars, ever on cloth of state, with interchangeable embroidery woe, nor spread Arachne over her curious loom, as ofttimes a light skiff moored to the shore stands part in water, part upon the land, or as where dwells the greedy German boar. The beaver settles watching for his prey. So on the rim that fenced the sand with rock sat perched the fiend of evil, in the void glancing, his tail upturned its venomous fork, with sting like scorpions armed. Then thus my guide. Now neither way must turn few steps apart, far as to that ill beast who couches there. Thereat, toward the right or downward course we shaped, and, better to escape the flame and burning marl, 10 paces on the verge proceeded. Soon as we to him arrive, a little farther on mine eye beholds a tribe of spirits seated on the sand near the wide chasm. Forthwith my master spake, that to the full thy knowledge may extend of all this round contains. Go now, and mark the mean these wear, but hold not long discourse. Till thou return'st, I with him meantime will parley, that to us he may vouchsafe the age of his strong shoulders. Thus, alone, yet forward on the extremity I paced of that 7th circle, where the mournful tribe were seated, but the eyes forth gushed their pangs. Against the vapors and the torrid soil, alternately their shifting hands they plied. Thus, use the dogs in summer still to ply their jaws and feet by turns, when bitten sore by gnats, or flies, or gadflies swarming round. Noting the visages of some who lay beneath the pelting of that dolorous fire, one of them all I knew not, but perceived that pendant from his neck each bore a pouch with colors and with emblems various marked, on which it seemed as if their eye did feed. And when amongst them looking round I came, a yellow purse I saw with azure wrought, and wore a lion's countenance and port. Then still my sight pursuing its career, another I beheld, than blood more red, a goose display of whiter wing than curd, and one who bore a fat and azure swine pictured on his white scrip, addressed me thus: What dost thou in this deep? Go now and know, since yet thou liv'st, that my neighbor here, Vitaliano on my left, shall sit. Paduan with these Florentines am I. Ofttimes they thunder in mine ears, exclaiming, O haste that noble knight, he who the pouch with the 3 beaks will bring. This said, he writhed the mouth and lolled the tongue out like an ox that licks his nostrils. I lest longer stay he ill might brook, who bade me stay not long. Backward my steps from those sad spirits turned. My guide already seated on the haunch of the fierce animal I found, and thus he me encouraged. Be thou stout, be bold. Down such a steep flight must we now descend. Mount thou before, for that no power of the tail may have to harm thee. I will be in the midst. As one who hath an ague fit so near, his nails already are turned blue, and he quivers all over. If he but eye the shade, such was my cheer at hearing of his words. But shame soon interposed her threat, who makes the servant bold in presence of his lord. I settled me upon those shoulders huge, and would have said, but that the words to aid my purpose came not. Look, thou clasp me firm. But he whose succor there not first I proved, soon as I mounted in his arms aloft, embracing, held me up, and thus he spake. Geryon, now move thee. Be thy wheeling gyrus of amble circuit, easy thy descent. Think on thou unusual burden thou stain'st. As a small vessel beckoning out from land, her station quits, so thence the monster loosed. and when he felt himself at large, turned round, there, where the breast had been, his forked tail. Thus, like an eel, outstretched at length he steered, gathering the air up with retractile claws. Not greater was the dread when Phaeton, the reins let drop at random, whence high heaven, whereof signs yet appear, was wrapped in flames. Nor when ill-fated Icarus perceived, by liquefaction of the scalded wax, the trusted pennons loosed from his loins, his sire exclaiming loud, "Ill way thou keep'st." Then was my dread, when round me on each part the air I viewed, and the other object none, save the fell beast. He slowly sailing, wheels his downward motion unobserved of me, but that the wind arising to my face breathes on me from below. Now on our right, I heard the cataract beneath us leap with hideous crash, whence bending down to explore, new terror I conceived of the steep plunge. For flames I saw, and wailing smote mine ear, so that all trembling close I crouched my limbs, and then distinguished unperceived before, for the dread torments that on every side drew nearer, our downward course we wound. As falcon, that hath long been on the wing, but lure nor bird hath seen, while in despair the falconer cries, "Ah me, thou stoop'st to earth." Wearied descends, and swiftly down the sky in many an orbit wheels. Then lightning sits at distance from his lord in angry mood. So carry on, lighting places us on foot, low down at base of the deep furrowed rock, and, of his burden there discharged, forthwith sprang forward like an arrow from the string. Canto, 18. There is a place within the depths of hell called Malebulge, all of rock dark-stained, with hue ferruginous, even as the steep that round its circling winds. Right in the midst of that abominable region yawns a spacious gulf profound, whereof the frame due time shall tell. The circle that remains throughout its round between the gulf and base of the high craggy banks, successive forms 10 trenches in its hollow bottom sunk, as where to guard the walls full many a fosse begirds some stately castle, sure defense affording to the space within. So here were modeled these, and as like fortresses even from their threshold to the brink without, were flanked with bridges. From the rock's low base thus flinty paths advanced, that crossed the moles and dikes, struck onward far as the gulf, that in one bound collected cuts them off. Such was the place wherein we found ourselves from Gerion's back dislodged. The bard to left held on his way, and I behind him moved. On a right hand new misery I saw, new pains, new executioners of wrath, that swarming peopled the first chasm. Below were naked sinners, hitherward they came, meeting our faces from the middle point, with us beyond, but with a larger stride. Even thus the Romans, when the year returns of Jubilee, with better speed to rid the thronging multitudes. Their means devise for such as pass the bridge, that on one side all front toward the castle, and approach St. Peter's fane, on the other towards the mount. Each diver's way along the grisly rock, horned demons I beheld, with lashes huge, that on their back unmerciful spoke. Ah, how they made them bound at the first stripe. None for the second waited, nor the third. Meantime, as on I passed, one met my sight, whom soon as viewed. Of him, cried I, not yet mine eye hath had his fill. With fixed gaze I therefore scanned him. Straight the teacher, kind, paused with me, and consented I should walk backward a space. And the tormented spirit, who thought to hide him, bent his visage down. But it availed him not, for I exclaimed, Thou who dost cast thy eye upon the ground, unless thy features do belly thee much, benedico art thou. But what brings thee into this bitter seasoning? He replied, Unwillingly I answered to thy words, but thy clear speech, that to my mind recalls the world I once inhabited, constrains me. Know when 'twas I who led fair Gisola to do the Marquis's will, however fame the shame tale have bruited. Nor alone, Bologna hither sendeth me to mourn, rather with us the place is so overthronged, and not so many tongues this day are taught, betwixt the Reno and Savina's stream, to answer Sipa in their country's phase. And if of that securer proof thou need, remember but a craving thirst for gold. Him speaking thus, a demon with his throng struck and exclaimed, Away, corrupter, here women are none for sale. Forthwith I joined my escort, and few paces thence we came to where a rock forth issued from the bank, that easily ascended to the right. Upon its splinter turning, we depart from those eternal barriers. When arrived, where underneath the gaping arch lets pass the scourged souls. Pause here, the teacher said, and let those others miserable now strike on thee ken. Faces not yet beheld, for that together they with us have walked. From the old bridge we eyed the pack, who came from the other side towards us like the rest, excoriate from the lash. My gentle guide, by me unquestioned, thus his speech resumed. Behold that lofty shade, who this way tends, and seems too woe-begone to drop a tear. How yet the regal aspect he retains. Jason is he, whose skill and prowess won the ram from Colchos. To the Lemnian isle his passage thither led him, when those bold and pitiless women had slain all their males. There he with tokens and fair witching words Hypsipyle beguiled, a virgin young, who first had all the rest herself beguiled. Impregnated he left her there forlorn. Such is the guilt condemns him to this pain. Here too Medea's injuries are avenged, and bear him company, who like deceit to his have practiced. And thus much to know of the first veil suffice thee, and of those whom its keen torments urge. Now had we come where, crossing the next pier, the straightened path betrays its shoulders to another arch. Hence in the second chasm we heard the ghosts, who gibber in low melancholy sounds, with wide-stretched nostrils snort, and on themselves smite with their palms. Upon the banks a scurf from the foul steam condensed, encrusting hung, that held sharp combat with the sight and smell. So hollow is the depth, that from no part save on the summit of the rocky span could I distinguish aught. Thus far we came, and thence I saw with the fosse below a crowd immersed in ordure that appeared draught of the human body. There beneath, searching with eye inquisitive, I marked one with his head so grimed 'twere hard to deem if he were clerk or layman. Loud he cried, "Why greedily thus bendest more on me than on these other filthy ones I ken?" "Because if true my memory," I replied, "I heretofore have seen thee with dry locks, and thou Alessio art of Lucca sprung. Therefore than all the rest I scan thee more." Then beating on his brain these words he spake, me thus low down my flatteries have sunk, wherewith I never enough could glut my tongue. My leader thus, "A little further stretch thy face, and thou the visage well mayst note of that besotted, sluttish courtesan, who there doth rend her with defiled nails, now crouching down, now risen on her feet. Is this the harlot whose false lip answered her doting paramour that asked, 'Thinkest me much?' Say rather wondrously. And seeing this here, satiate be our view." Canto 19. Woe to thee, Simon Magnus! Woe to you, his wretched followers! For the things of God, which should be wedded unto goodness, them, rapacious as ye are, do prostitute for gold and silver in adultery. Now must the trumpet sound for you, since yours is a third chasm. Upon the following vault we now had mounted, where the rock impends directly over the center of the fosse. Wisdom supreme, how wonderful the art which thou dost manifest in heaven, in earth, and in the evil world. How just a meed allotting by thy virtue unto all. I saw the livid stone throughout the sides and in its bottom full of apertures, all equal in their width, and circular each, nor ample less nor larger they appeared than in St. John's fair dome. Of me, beloved, those framed to hold the pure, baptismal streams, and one of the which I break some few years past to save a whelming infant. And be this a seal to undeceive whoever doubts the motive of my deed. From out the mouth of every one emerged a sinner's feet, and of the legs high upward as the calf. The rest beneath was hid. On either foot the soles were burning, whence the flexile joints glanced with such violent motion as had snapped asunder cords or twisted widths, as flame, feeding on unctuous matter, glides along the surface, scarcely touching where it moves. So here, from heel to point, glided the flames. Master, say who is he than all the rest, glancing in fiercer agony, on whom a ruddier flame doth prey? I thus inquired. "If thou be willing," he replied, "that I carry thee down, where least the slope bank falls, he of himself shall tell thee and his wrongs." I then, "As pleases thee to me is best, thou art my lord, and knowest that never I quit thy will. But silence hides that knowest thou." Thereat on the fourth pier we came, we turned, and on our left descended to the depth. A narrow strait and perforated close, nor from his side my leader set me down, till to his orifice he brought, whose limb quivering expressed his pang. "Whoever thou art, sad spirit thus reversed, and as a stake driven in the soil. I in these words began, "If thou be able, utter forth thy voice." There stood I like the friar that doth shrive a wretch for murder doomed, who even when fixed calleth him back, whence death a while delays. He shouted, "Ah, already standest there, O Boniface. By many a year the writing played me false. So early dost thou surfeit the wealth, for which thou fear'dst not in guile to take the lovely lady, and then mingle her." I felt as those who, piercing not the drift of answer, made them stand as if exposed in mockery, nor know what to reply. When Virgil thus admonished, "Tell him quick, I am not he whom thou believest." And I, as was enjoined me, straight replied, "That heard, the spirit all did retch his feet, and sighing next in woeful accents spake, What then of me requirest? If to know such much imports thee who I am, that thou hast therefore down the bank descended, learn that in the mighty mantle I was robbed, and of a she-bear was intended the son, so eager to advance my whelps that there, my having in my purse above I stowed, and here myself. Under my head are dragged the rest, the predecessors in the guild of simony. Stretched at their length they lie along an opening in the rock. Amidst them I also low shall fall, soon as he comes, for whom I took thee, when so hastily I questioned. But already longer time hath passed, since my soul's kindled, and I thus upturned have stood. Then is his doom to stand planted with fiery feet. For after him, one yet of deeds more ugly shall arrive. From forth the west, a shepherd without law, fated to cover both his form and mine. He, a new Jason, shall be called, of whom in Maccabees we read, and favor such, as to that priest as king indulgent shown, shall be of France's monarch, shown to him. I know not if I were heretofore presumed, but in this strain I answered, "Tell me now, what treasures from St. Peter at the first our Lord demanded, when he put the keys into his charge? Surely he asked no more, but follow me. Nor Peter nor the rest, or gold or silver of Matthias took, when lots were cast upon the forfeit place of the condemned soul. Abide thou then, thy punishment of right is merited, and look thou well into that ill-gotten coin which against Charles thy hardihood inspired. If reverence of the keys restrained me not, which thou in happier time didst I hold, I yet severer speech might use. Your avarice overcast the world with mourning, underfoot treading the good, and raising bad men up. Of shepherds like you the evangelist was ware, when her, who sits upon the waves, with kings and filthy whoredom he beheld, she who with 7 heads towered at her birth, and from 10 horns her proof of glory drew, long as her spouse in virtue took delight. Of gold and silver ye have made your God, differing wherein from the idolater, but he that worships one, 100 ye. Ah, Constantine, how much ill gave birth, not thy conversion, but that plenteous dower, which the first wealthy father gained from thee. Meanwhile, as thus I sung, he, whether wrath or conscience smote him, violent upsprang spinning on either soul. I do believe my teacher well was pleased with so composed a lip. He listened ever to the sound of the true words I uttered. In both arms he caught, and to his bosom lifting me upward, retraced the way of his descent. Nor weary of his weight, he pressed me close, till to the summit of the rock we came, our passage from the fourth to the fifth pier. His cherished burden there gently he placed upon the rugged rock, and steep a path, not easy for the clambering goat to mount. Thence, to my view, another vale appeared. And this, my darling, ends our story time for today. As always, hope that you have very sweet and creepy dreams.